What if I told you that weight loss is not that complicated? In fact, I can tell you exactly what you would need to do to lose 80 pounds because I've done it. I have lost 80 pounds and now I'm a health coach and I help other people do it. And I've watched them use these things to lose a bunch of weight themselves. And this is what I teach them as well. There are four things that I teach. Step one, you got to get moving. Yes, I'm talking about exercise. And I promise this whole list is not going to be just eat less, move more, but you can't be healthy if you don't exercise. It's a requirement. Not only is it the gold standard for weight maintenance, meaning it's how you keep the weight off, but it's just a necessary piece of being a healthy person overall. It helps with insulin sensitivity. It helps you build muscle mass, which gives the sugar that you eat a place to go that's not your body fat. And what I would consider most importantly, which is why I put it as step one, it is an excellent stress management tool. And from where I sit as a health and weight loss coach, one of the main reasons that people quit trying to lose weight is because life gets in the way, because stress comes at them and they aren't resilient enough to get back in the saddle quickly because they don't have anything that's kind of helping them stay a little bit copacetic. And so having an exercise program, an exercise habit in place helps you stay on track with all the other things that you got to do to lose weight. So it's a non-negotiable. I don't think I have to spend a lot of time selling this. You got to exercise to be healthy. What did I personally do to help me build the exercise habit? First of all, I did Couch to 5K and that helped me become a runner. And I like to sign up for Run Disney races and that gives me something to work toward. Running's not for everybody, I get it, but that was something that really helped me. The other thing that I have found really useful is Peloton, right? Having those classes where you can, have someone just tell you what to do is incredibly helpful. Doing a challenge like 75 hard, which I've completed successfully once in the past. I tried a couple more times unsuccessfully, but having a challenge so that you have something that you're working on seems to be a really good thing too. Something else I did to keep me moving, I got a dog. That is the best trainer I've ever had. he wants me to walk rain or shine every single day. So maybe get a dog. Step two, cut the carbs. I know nobody wants to hear it. But if you understand what insulin resistance is, and I did a whole nother video on it, you can watch it if you don't know what it is. But the long and short of it is too many carbs is what caused the insulin resistance, which is what caused your weight problem. So logic dictates that you need to eat less if you want to have any chance of resolving the insulin resistance problem. So the carbs got to go. Now, how low do they have to go? That really depends on how insulin resistant you are and how much extra body fat you have. If, like me, you were very insulin resistant, I had 80 pounds to lose, then you probably got to cut them pretty low. And sometimes people get that, but they're like, how the hell am I supposed to go about doing that? Like when I list out what carbs are, people are like, that's my whole diet. That's what I eat all the time. How am I supposed to just do an about face on my diet? I've seen cutting carbs done effectively in three main ways. Number one is tracking. I know. Tracking sucks and I hate it too, but it can really give you some insight as to how many carbs you're starting out with so you know what number you need to go down from. Some people might be at like 300 grams a day and they need to keep pushing down until they start to see some progress. And so that is a strategy. That was the strategy that I learned. I read a book called Protein Power back in like 1999. And in that book, they recommended you go under 30 grams, which is like a ketogenic diet. So that's what I did. And it was crazy. It was crazy helpful back in my 20s, not as helpful in my 40s by itself, but it is still what I follow today is a very low carbohydrate diet. How low you got to go is really dependent on how far gone, how metabolically, jacked up you are when it comes to insulin resistance. The number two strategy that I've seen be effective is elimination diets. That might be something like a Whole30 or a carnivore diet. Generally, people do those for like 30 days. I mean, some people do them in perpetuity, right? Some people keep eating them, but one way to try is to just do it for 30 days and see, if that makes just having that challenge defined by a month makes it easier to take on than the rest of my life. That can be a lot. So a 30-day elimination diet just to see what it's like to have those carbs cut dramatically. Now, the first two is what I did, but the third one is what I recommend as a coach all the time, and that's using a continuous glucose monitor. Now, I don't have any affiliate deals. I ain't selling any, much as I wouldn't mind to because I believe in it deeply. But as a nurse practitioner, they won't let me. The reason I really like to recommend a continuous glucose monitor to help people lower their carbs is because, unlike tracking or an elimination diet, where somebody else is like giving you advice and telling you what to do and what, numbers to get down to, when you slap a CGM on your body and you can see in real time on your body how the foods are affecting your blood sugar, that is powerful. Practically every single person that I have recommended one to uses the same phrase: eye opening. So I can talk until I'm blue in the face about how the carbs are the problem. But when you watch a blood sugar spike after eating something and you're like, hey, why did it gotta go so high? Yeah, that's what your body is doing every time you eat that thing. And when we have a sugar spike, that means we have an insulin spike, which means we're going into fat storage, which is why we're not losing weight. Dang it. So when we have a CGM, we can see that. So yeah, I love me a continuous glucose monitor. Now, I have seen a couple people use one and their insulin was so high that they would eat all kinds of crap and it would barely register. I'm like, oh man, that sucks. But for most people, it really does become an eye-opening experience where they can see how like refined carbs really affect their blood sugar. Now, a caveat about the food: cutting carbs is sometimes not the only thing that you got to change when it comes to your diet. Sometimes it is a quantity issue. And I have seen people use things like keto and carnivore, and they're eating so much that they're not losing weight from it. And I think that's because a lot of influencers are like, eat as much as you want. You can eat sticks of butter, it's fine. And that might have worked in your 20s, but it might not work in your 40s, 50s, and 60s. And so that could be part of the problem. So that is something to tuck away if cutting the carbs isn't enough. It might be an overeating problem. And sometimes things like mindful eating are things that you got to practice to deal with that one. Step three, and here's where the real magic happened for me: intermittent fasting. Now, there are two parts to this. The first part is only eating at meal times, not snacking or grazing. Sometimes people think that that's the long and short of fasting, getting down to eating 2 meals a day. So they're like, oh, well, I'm fasting. I, eat lunch and dinner. And so I should have all of this miraculous weight loss. And that doesn't always work for people, especially if they've had a lot of extra body fat for many years. Sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes it is. I have a client that lost 70 pounds eating 2 meals a day in a very low carb diet. So I've seen it work. It's not that it doesn't, but it didn't work for me. I needed to do more fasting in order to lose the 80 pounds that I lost. Specifically, I needed to fast past 24 hours. Now, there's a lot that goes into doing those longer fasts, and I highly recommend that you get more information about that before you try it for yourself. So, in terms of these steps that I'm going through, I believe that movement and cutting the carbs are a requirement regardless of what weight loss tool that you have. I also think that time restricted eating or only eating at meal times is also a requirement, not only to lose the weight, but also to maintain the weight loss. The thing about fasting is that is an accelerant. It is a weight loss tool. And so it is going to make the weight loss come off faster. And, in my case, very fast. I lost 55 pounds in 6 months. But in order to have any chance of that being a permanent change, for that weight to not come back, the exercise and the time restricted eating and the low carb eating need to be locked in. Those need to be just part of how you live. And step four, you got to keep your head on right. This game is won or lost in mindset. It is the big thing, right? You can know inside out and upside down how to exercise, how to fast, how to eat. But if you don't have your head on right, if you are stressed out, overwhelmed, if you get a case of the effits every weekend because your life is too much to handle, and so your health becomes, backburnered because there's so much else going on, it's not going to work and it's not going to stick. So that is probably the biggest reason I see most people are unsuccessful at either losing the weight or keeping it off. So I already talked about exercise and how important that is for stress management. If that's not enough, then I would highly recommend something like meditation as a stress management tool and as a tool to help with things like cravings and managing, acute situations and acute temptations in the moment. I also highly recommend that you recommit to your goal on a regular basis. Sometimes we just kind of forget that we're trying to lose weight and get healthier because it takes so freaking long. And so I really encourage, thinking about your goal, recommitting your goal on a daily basis. And much like I think exercise is easier to stick to when you have help, I think weight loss in general is easier to stick to when you have help. I'm not just saying that because I am a coach. I became a coach because having one was such a life changing experience for me. I spent 46 years as an obese person, and I was not able to crack the code of weight loss until I had help, until I had accountability and support. Not everybody needs that. Some people are just really disciplined and can really just take this ball and run with it. And the reason that they've been unsuccessful so many times is because they didn't have the appropriate strategy. They were told small, frequent meals of refined grains, which is exactly what I would tell somebody if I wanted them to gain weight, right? So they had the exact opposite advice, and had someone just told them low carb, intermittent fasting, they would have gotten there on their own years ago. So I highly encourage people to try it. But in my experience, people struggle to do this by themselves, like I did. So there you go. Not complicated. Move your body, lower the carbs, intermittent fast, get your head on straight. Make good choices.